everybody, I am Big Will, and welcome to another live stream. It's been a while since I've done one, actually, and we're going to be talking about investments versus speculation. What is the difference, really? And I thought, it would be great, I love to hear my own voice, but it'd be great to talk with somebody. And I was looking through YouTube, and I saw this guy. He had, at the time, under 100 subs, under 80 subs, I think, and he's got some good videos, and now he's almost at 200. And I thought, hey, before this guy gets too big here, I need to get him on and we talk about some stuff. His name's David. His channel is called Comic Book Investments. It's linked in the description below the video. And let's welcome him now. What's going on? So, give everybody a quick introduction, other than what your name is and what the name of your channel is. Who are you? What do you do?
I'm a comic book dealer. I've been dealing in comic books as a full-time career for about 12 years now. And before that, growing up, I've always been around comics because my dad was a big-time dealer in the 80s and the 90s. He retired when I was in high school, and then kind of comes back and forth doing it part-time. Like, he has stuff and he just kind of sells it a little bit, and then when he needs money or something like that. But so this is what I do now. So
sweet. And looks like a lot of people during the dark times of the pandemic and such, you thought, hey, I'll just get on YouTube too, huh?
Yeah, so I've been wanting to do a YouTube channel for a long time. Like, I have my music channel that I do upload my music onto, and I've been doing that since like 2016. But as far as like financial advice and comic book investing, I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I just never got the time, and then finally New Year's came around. I'm like, I'm doing it. And so I just started. So
nice. And looks like we got the Simply Incredible podcast here. What's going on, man? And Las Cruces, how you doing? We'll probably have people popping in and out throughout the time we're here but your channel is Comic Book Investments, and you're a dealer, but most of the top 10 videos and everything that people talk about, MCU and all that, is around speculation. So when you say an investment, what do you mean? I know what the actual definition is, but what do you mean when you say investment?
So my whole philosophy is talking about long-term investments, and long-term, I mean, you hold it for a long, long time. I'm talking about not a couple of years. I'm talking about 5, 10 years, 20 years. I had a customer who I used to sell Batman and Detective Comics to, and he had one of the highest grade Batman Detective runs. And you might know this. Do you remember a few years ago how a guy got his comic book collection stolen out of a storage locker in Florida? And he had to track down the police, and they finally got him. It took like 2 years to get back.
Yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of my. He's actually a cool guy. He's one of my friends. He actually got us into Comic-Con a couple times. But yeah, we used to sell him Batman Detective Comics. He had the highest run. He started collecting when, I think, in the 70s, and he just got a bunch more. And then he had one of the highest grade runs of Batman. Sold it on Heritage when he came time to retire, and that's his retirement. Probably made like 3 or 4 million off of it. And so that's when I'm talking investment. That's kind of like what I'm looking at, is like, it's the same way I do with stocks. Like, I'll invest in stocks like something like Tesla, but it's like, I'm not going to sell this for many, many, many years. So when I talk investments, I don't mean like, hey, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to flip it again in a month. Like, I have to do that as a dealer, but when I talk investments, that's what I mean.
Okay. So what would speculation mean to you? What a spec book to you means what? Because you're dealing with, let's just say, big books, blue chip. That's the kind of thing you're dealing with. So when someone comes to you with JLA 26, what are your thoughts here?
So on like a spec book, the market's like kind of crazy right now because all the because I used to do spec books. I would go on like just movie sites and see like who's going to be the upcoming villain or side character in a movie, saying like a Black Panther or something like that. And then I would find all the nuanced characters and just buy up a bunch of those and then wait 2 or 3 years until I had to sell them. Like, I would consider that a spec book. But now people are so into the industry, it's like you have to speculate before the other speculators speculate. And so something like, for example, something I'm specking on, and what I mean by speculation on is basically something could happen in the future that would bring value and attention to that book, which is like a movie comes out, a TV show, or who knows what, cartoon or something. And so like a spec book on me, it's like, okay, like people would spec on like Ghost Rider, oh, he's coming to the MCU or something like that, right? But that's always sky high. People have already spec'd on that book for a long time. So a spec book, like for me, would be like something like a Nintendo book, where it's like, I have no idea. It's like a shot in the dark, right? It's like it could turn into something, it could not. And I think speculation is more of like almost like educated gambling, I guess, so to speak. It's like you think something good is going to come of it, so you can hold on to it and then make, a quick buck. But the problem with these spec books, it's all based on hype. Like I think most comics are going to trend this gradual line going up, but you'll get a book that'll spike up really high and then drop down and then move back to the line where it should have been. And for example, that happened with Marvel Superheroes 13. I bought a bunch of those. First, Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, and you have to time it perfectly. So it's like because you hold it too long. So what happened was we had the books and I was holding them back, and they're going up because the movie was about to come out. So this is many years ago. Mm-hmm. And I waited too long. And so when I remember I bought a book at it was like $1,000. And by the time I got it in, got it graded, got it back up, and then I looked and like, oh, the highest one sold was, X. And so I put it slightly above that. The market already shifted to go down. And so mine sat. And then like next thing you know, 3 months goes by, 6 months go by. So I dropped the price, but the price keeps dropping. And the next thing I know, I end up losing money on it because it dropped so much. And that's the problem with speculation. Is there like, it's this normal graph that the book should go up, but there's this big spike. And you have to time it perfectly. And that's, even me, I have a hard time doing that.
I did the exact same thing with the exact same book, but in the opposite direction. I bought it a few years before the movie was coming out and before there was talk of the movie, and my first mistake was I got them PGX'd. That was my first mistake. Never doing that again. But anyway, and then I go and I sell them, and I make a small profit, but hey, profit's profit. And the problem was the next year we got a trailer for the movie, and they were starting to go up. And then of course the movie came out, and like you said, started going back down again because of reasons with, the Captain Marvel, what's your name? Brie Larson.
Yeah.
So I sold too soon.
Yeah. And that's the thing with speculation. If you look at the book now, it's actually coming back up again because, like I said, it goes on a speculation spike, drops down, but eventually it goes back to where it should have always been, like this steady incline. So that's the thing with speculation versus investing is speculation, you're trying to time that big spike. And with investing, you don't care about the spike or not. You're just buying and holding. And then eventually 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line.
So we got a few more people in here. We already said hello silently to Michael the Great, Unruly Simeon. How you guys doing? We also got Can't Get Enough. And so if someone come to you and said, I've saved up $500, where would you leave them?
Well,
the only catch is comic book.
The thing I tell people is buy the book because you like the book, because you can't go wrong with that investment. You can't go wrong with the investment of giving yourself joy. So if you're really into Punisher, right? Maybe you want to get the first appearance of Punisher, or maybe you want to get a Punisher one when he got his own series and you get a nice high grade of that, right? So that's why I always tell people first is buy the book that you really love, right? And so once you narrow it down to what you really love, then you can narrow it down to certain key books that you can get of that character or of that series or whatever it is. If you're really into Star Wars, get a Star Wars #1. If it's just kind of like, that's how I frame it first. And that way, if you buy a book solely off of like, will this go up in price? How much will it go up? Then you're stuck with a book you might not really like. You might really care less about the character. But at least if you buy a book that you love or a character you love and you hang it on your wall, even if it went down in price or something like that, hey, I still got something I love. So that's how I always tell people. But so $500, if it was me, I like Hulk, Turtles, Gambit. So if I had $500, I would probably, well, you can't get a Hulk 181. You could probably get a Hulk 180 for $500, like a lower grade. But I'd probably go with a X-Men 266 and probably get a high grade of that. Like you get somewhere in between 9.8, 9.6.
All right. So let me. I was thinking what I would do, and I would go a bit older. I like Batman 181 myself, and just because it's unique among his rogues gallery, being the only one that came out in the Silver Age.
I got it right here.
Yeah. So, do you think right now the comic book market is straight rocket up? That's what we are right now. Do you think that is hiding bad investments? Because the some of the books that are going the craziest and going the most are the ones as soon as they come out, like Department of Truth #1, which I think is a great book, but I don't know if I would invest in it. I had one when it first came out because I ordered it and bought it and read it and liked it, and then I got it graded, and I was able to sell it for almost $100. Now it's like a $200 book. But I'm happy with what I did, and I knew that worst case scenario I could sell it for $45 shipped, and I'd make $5.
Yeah.
So, do you think it's hiding bad investments?
So, do you remember back? I don't know if back in what was it, early 90s when they had that Death of Superman run, and there's like, I watched some old news broadcast where this lady goes in and she buys like 10 copies. She's like, this is going to be my child's college fund. And it's like, and so we've been through this before as comic collectors and dealers. I think the issue now with these books going sky high is we have a new player in the game, and that player is big time investors, not like comic investors, but VCs, venture capitalists, Silicon Valley. I just did a video on, there's a ton of websites popping up. My brother's in Silicon Valley, and there's all these people like
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think Unruly is just blowing my mind right now. Apparently, Department of Truth is 600 plus in a 9.8 right now. Wow.
Oh, that's crazy.
You were saying bigger investors are coming in.
Yeah, bigger investors, people with a lot of money. Like I think it was one of the founders of Reddit or CEO of Reddit. He started this website where I don't know if you've seen him before, where you maybe like most people can't afford to get an Action #1, but you can buy a share or a percentage of an Action #1. And then you trade that share as like a stock on their stock market. And there's been a lot of companies, a lot of Silicon Valley companies coming into the space. And it's like they're just throwing money in. And that's the spike. But it's also everything's going up. Look at stocks. Stocks are sky high. Real estate is sky high. Like everything's just going up. So I think there's a ton of inflation going on. So your dollar is actually worth less. So
you know what I saw? I was going in the Dollar General the other day, right? And I noticed as I was paying, they had a sticker, handwritten, of course, on the little sneeze guard thing for COVID that said, "Due to inflation, we are adjusting our prices throughout the store." And I'm thinking, okay, third stimulus. Okay, I see what's going on. I'm happy to get money. Don't get me wrong. I like money, but I know that, okay, gas is going up. They're adjusting everything. yeah, we're probably, thanks to all this stuff the government did, we're probably going to be getting some higher prices here.
And that's, I mean, I don't know if you, there's this famous story about after World War I, when Germany had to pay everyone back.
Yeah.
They just basically printed a bunch of money. So a loaf of bread was like $1 million, right?
Yeah.
And you have a wheelbarrow of dollars just to go, or whatever they had, what it was called, to get a loaf of bread. That's extreme inflation. But with all this government spending and stimulus bills and all that kind of stuff, inflation is happening, and it's supposed to be like 2% a year, and it's going to be much, much higher than that. And that's what's happening. So everything's going up. So it's not like it was back in like the 90s where things had a boom and then they busted because comics was the only thing booming then. It's everything. So
yeah, he's almost 40, still lives with his parents, and Unruly just got back from Wally World. Detergents doubled. But yeah, man, I think our national debt is almost, I think we've rounded it off to 30 trillion now, and that's officially larger than our GDP.
It's almost like it gets so big that it doesn't matter. Like there is no, who cares anymore? What's the difference? Oh, let's add another trillion to that. That means nothing. So I think that's kind of, and that's why I always tell people, like, to invest your money. If you stick it in a savings account, it's just getting worth less by the minutes that go by. You can see like it just.
I would suggest the bare minimum you should have in a savings account is 3 months of your expenses, and the maximum is 12 months. No more than that. Whatever your risk tolerance is between those two, do that, and then stop saving. Put it in your retirement, put it in investing in something else. But just once you get that emergency fund of cash, stop.
Exactly. Yeah, I have an emergency fund just in case I need money. But yeah, every dollar that I save pretty much goes into different investments. And that's what you got to, it's kind of like what you got to do to like hold on to your money and you want your money to work for you. That's why my channel is like, look, yeah, there's stocks, there's real estate, and all that crypto and all that good stuff. But you could also, if you love comics, you can also put it in comics.
Yeah. That is what I am started doing now. Is I was thinking of myself as I've been buying and selling. I'm not a dealer, but I've been buying and selling for 20 years, and I've noticed, seen the prices and everything else. So I've started buying specifically to sell, and I was buying at like 30 cents and selling for $2, which is an amazing profit as far as percentage wise, but it's also $2 freaking.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have stopped all of that. I've almost got rid of all that stuff, and I'm switching now to books that are worth, double digit or more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to try my best, unless it's something I'm sending in with a pre-screen, just to get a 9.8 out of it, just in case it might be something later. If it's not $100 in value and the grade below what I think it is, I'm probably not going to send it in.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb. Because it costs a lot to send it. So, and prices keep going up. So,
yeah. What do you think of this statement?
21 comic collecting. We are in the end game now. I see comics, like I showed you earlier. I mean, here we have like the price guide. This is the first Overstreet price guide, and you look in this, and $300 for an action number 1. I think there's so many people that are into comic books that there's always going to be a market. Maybe the big investors like the Silicon Valley get out of it, and so the price drops. But it will still always go up. I mean, I was talking to a guy who had a chance to buy an Action Comics number 1 in a pretty decent shape in the late 90s for $25,000. And he's like, oh, that's so much. I don't think I could pull the trigger on a comic book for $25,000. I mean, and he said it was probably like a 6 or an 8. Like, he can't really remember. But I mean, imagine you had that book before this speculation bubble, massive, like huge spike happened. it would still be worth in the millions.
Yeah.
So it's,
I mean, just think at what people are spending now. I think I'm not 100% on how to pronounce it. The Djurjevic or whatever variant of the Ultimate Fallout #4, First Miles Morales, is around $25,000.
You want to hear something even crazier? I mean, it's not as expensive, but I have a couple I showcased on my comic book hauls. But there's a comic book called Marvel Previews 95.
Yes, Comic Tom interviewed the guy that bought it for $2,000. That was the first huge spike of it, and now it's selling for what, 5?
10, a 9. I think 9.8 sold for 10. I'm pretty sure around 10 or something like that. Ridiculous. And here it is. It's like, that's kind of like, it's so interesting. So like his first appearance was in Ultimate Fallout 4, but technically his first published appearance was, I believe, in that book. And it's I have 3 of them. I'm sending to CGC, but it's just like things like that. It's just like these books that I've never really even heard of. It was never on my radar. If you went back 2 years ago, you probably could have picked them up for around $50. And then it's all of a sudden they get discovered as like, well, technically this is his real first appearance. So it's just interesting how that kind of works, which is fun for me because I get to learn about books I've never heard of or never be on my radar. And I'm like,
well, Discovery Bay Comics. I don't know if you've seen any of his stuff. He's a great guy. He took his kids to see the Enter the Spider-Verse movie. And for some reason, unlike the MCU stuff, the Spider-Verse movie came out and that didn't move Miles Morales.
no.
The video game is the thing that started moving Miles Morales. So he got out of the theater and enjoyed the movie like we all did that saw it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that movie.
And he got on the webs on eBay as soon as he was walking his kids to the car from getting out of the theater and bought like 10 of them for $100. And they're all high grade now.
Yeah. Also, another thing that's interesting is like the whole newsstand variant. And that started because of the video game market where with Heritage getting in bed with WATA coming out with like, oh, well, this video game is technically the first run of this printing of this, all this kind of stuff. Like, and people started looking like, whoa.
That is dangerous, though. That's one of the things that I hope, if I have a newsstand comic book, I will notate the fact when I sell it, hey, it's a newsstand. But I know, that until 1985, that didn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't.
It's only after 85 that actually, started to matter. Like, I think, let's see, I got one right here. This perfect example. This right here is, the Wolverine #1 newsstand.
Mm-hmm.
Newsstands were about 30% of the market. This came out in 1988. It's still not extremely rare, but it's more rare than the direct edition.
Yeah.
Whereas, 85, 86, they were about 50-50.
Yeah.
But people will still say, hey, it's a newsstand. And then you have this, Superman Adventures #5, First Livewire. It is a newsstand.
That's much more rare.
It was about 5%.
Yeah.
This is actually extremely rare. But, then you have people that show you this Wolverine #1. Now, this is a direct, and that's because it's more rare. The newsstands actually, this is in 1982.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
30% was the newsstand, was the direct versus the newsstand. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that is where the hobby can get dangerous, is if you don't know the newsstand thing.
Yeah, and I try to explain to people, a newsstand is just, that's what kids did back in the day. They went to their grocery store and they just picked it off the little newsstand, and that's how they, how you picked up magazines and stuff. And it wasn't until the 80s that comic book shops started becoming more prevalent, and that's how you got direct, because they would sell them through whatever distribution hub, and they would get them directly to the comic shop. So that's all that kind of means.
Yeah, I would agree, Huda. He would love a direct of ASM 194. And yeah, that's the kind where it was a barcode with just a slash through it because they wasn't sure how to do the direct.
Yeah.
How to symbolize it. But yeah, that was 5%, like who that mentioned. So that was actually rare, having a direct, but yet people will tell you it's a newsstand.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it too, because I want my book to sell when I sell it. But
yeah, I tell people roughly estimate is like if you got something that's in the more like you can get anywhere from like a 10% bump to a 200% bump, like with a newsstand. That's kind of like, obviously it varies as you get to the more rare stuff, but that's kind of like where I look at it. It's like a small little bump to a pretty big bump in price.
I'm not going to repeat it word for word, but there you go.
What I always liked was Todd McFarlane, how he would draw a unique little character in the barcode area. I always liked that. Made it a little different.
And we don't have pricing stuff in front of us, so I don't think we could give you a worth. But percentage-wise, that was in the 2000 something, so it's extremely rare, the newsstand. It's less than 5%, greater than 1%. That's probably 3% of the print run was newsstand for that book.
Yeah. It's the newer stuff is harder to find because they would just sell them straight to the comic shop.
Yeah, I don't know if that guy who wants $2,500 for it is talking out of his butt or not, being a 9.6. I honestly don't know.
I mean, what is a 9.8 worth? A 9.8 is like what, like 5 to 800? I don't know. It's going up like crazy. Every time I check, it's different. But if I can remember correctly off the top of my head, I want to say it's like $700 or $800 for a 9.8.
Yeah. So there's a brand new collector. They like comics because they saw a Marvel movie and thought, hey, that looks pretty cool. And they're coming in and wanting to buy the first appearance of, let's say, Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm.
They only have $500 to their name. So if they come to you, how would you guide them? Because obviously they can't really afford, Strange Tales 110. They can't get a piece of one really for $500.
So how I would guide them to Doctor Strange 169 is what I would guide them to. Because I put comics in like 3 different tiers, right? There's an investment grade, which could be any grade. Like you can have an investment grade and an action number 1, it could be a 1.0. Investment grade just means it's a good grade. But then there's like a collectible grade, which is something that's nice to look at that you can hang on your wall or something. And that varies from different ages. And then there's just like a filler copy where you need to fill your run. And so you just need a copy. So I would tell them, get a Doctor Strange 169 in a collectible grade, which would also be an investment grade that can overlap. And that would be around an 8.0. That's what I tell them. You could go with, Strange Tales 111 or 115, but for the price that he has, you're going to get something that's more mid-range grade, which is not as collectible. So you could get a nice copy of a Doctor Strange 169, and that's what I would suggest.
And for those of you that everyone here probably already knows, you're comic book people, but for those of you that don't know, that is Doctor Strange number 1 of his titled series. They just moved the numbering over.
Yeah, because he went in Strange Tales 111, and Strange Tales went up to 168, and it would switch off with him and Nick Fury.
Yeah. So let's see here. That's a good point. So, yeah, I understand the 9.8 newsstand being, expensive because of that very reason.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the same breath, he says.
I mean, the newsstand thing came along with when video games and investors came in. They wanted something that was slightly more rare. And that's the thing is, like, as a collector, a normal comic collector, you're used to collecting a certain way, but then another whole group of people come in and they see it differently because they don't see it with your eyes. Because most people collect because, like, I love reading the comic or I like the cover. I don't care if it's a newsstand or direct. Makes no difference. I just want the book. While these other people are like, well, this is actually technically more rare, so that makes it more valuable. They get into more of that.
Well, now white pages is something that's affecting books more. as well if you have white pages on a book.
Yeah, which was never like the difference between white pages and off-white to white pages, off-white pages. People didn't really pay much of a premium for that.
You know what's funny is that white pages is starting to matter now, but it's easier to get white pages now with CGC at least than it was back in the day. Because back in the day, white pages meant it was a white page about as wide as my face is now, thanks to this window I'm sitting by, which I got to get me a curtain or something. Mm-hmm. But now they go with the white classification is the lightest color the paper was at the time of publishing. So it could be more off-white, or cream. But if that was the whitest that they produced, then they'll give it a white now at CGC. So it's easier to get white now. So it's kind of funny how now people are saying, hey, we need white pages.
Yeah. It's more of those investor groups, Silicon Valley groups that are getting into it and wanting the cream of the crop. And they're willing to pay for it because, like, if they do that thing like Otis and Rally and stuff like that, where you basically own a percentage of that book, which I think is a really bad idea. I made a whole video on it.
Yeah. I was about to say, I just got through watching that video before I jumped on here. And I actually checked out Rally, and I didn't do it for one reason. There's multiple copies of books, and I could just buy a lower grade or, save my money, patience, focus, sacrifice, and get one in hand rather than buying a piece of one. Yeah. So I never put any money with Rally.
Yeah. And my biggest issue is that these types of companies go bankrupt all the time. Like not comic stock market, but in Silicon Valley companies. VCs will invest in 100 different companies hoping one will work. So that means the other 99 or whatever it is.
Yeah, they're too new. Yeah, I agree with you. They're too new. Now, after 5-6 years, if they're still around, maybe it's a good idea. I don't know.
But then, like, one of the points I brought up was you don't actually own the book, right? You own a percentage of the book. And how do you know that book even exists? Like, companies have either bad CEOs, bad people working them, or the company just falters for whatever reason. What if they sell that book privately and they just have on their website, there's a picture of a book, and you would never know that they actually sold it. So you're actually investing into nothing.
So speaking of selling books, a lot of guys sell their books, and the biggest thing to sell your books is eBay. No site, nothing has more eyes on it than eBay that can see your book. But they charge with all their percentages and everything. When I sell on eBay, I figure a little more. So I figure 14.5%. That's a little more than what they actually charge you. And then there's other things like you could do Instagram or YouTube, which I've done that successfully. And the worst thing you got to worry about as far as fees are the PayPal fees. If you do goods and services, 3%. Yeah. I think they might be going up to 4%, but that's a lot less. But then again, there's no buyer protection really, or especially if you do friends and family. There's absolutely none. So that makes people kind of wary and getting ripped off. So a lot of people are finding new ways to sell. Like Shortboxed is an app that you can sell your comic books on. I think they have about 50,000 or a little more people that are on it now, and they take 10%. I got to noticing, is the website that you have in the description of your video, is that your website?
Yeah.
That you sell on?
Mm-hmm.
I noticed you consign. Can you tell us about that? Because I noticed a certain percentage, and that.
So I'm not really advertising it right now because it's not 100% done.
Oh, okay.
It works. You can go on there and you can sell your stuff on there. You can do whatever you want. So the way it's going to work is we're actually in the middle of getting auctions up and going. But the way it's going to work, if you are a trusted dealer, because with eBay, anyone can sell and people can get ripped off. But if you're a trusted person that either we know or you have like a good reputation, because if you sold a raw book and you didn't know what you're talking about, you could sell something missing coupons, missing pages, restored, and you screw someone over. So we want someone that's in the industry. But if you pass like basically that really easy test,
yeah,
it's 100% free. We take 0 commissions. zero selling fees, zero premiums, nothing, 100% free. When we do our auctions, which we're hoping to start at the end of summer, it's going to be 100% free. No, nothing. And you're thinking, well, how are you going to make money? We're not going to make a dime off of anyone for a while until we can build up the trust of the people. So that's how we're going to do it in the beginning. So our auctions there'll be two different type of auctions. The auctions that we house ourselves, where you send the books to us, we list them, and that's all free. You don't have to pay anything. There's no seller's fee, no final value fee, nothing. But then we'll also have it, if you're a trusted dealer, you can put your own auctions where you can, like, I want to do an auction of my own books on Tuesday or whatever, and you just put your own books up. You can house them up there for free instead of going on Instagram and putting it in, and they get, buried between all your other posts. So that's how, it's going to be free for a long time, just so we can gain users, because the number one thing why people don't want to use a site is because it doesn't command the value. And so our way of getting around that is like, well, what if it's free? So right now,
you're really putting your reputation on the line.
Exactly. And right now, if you are not a dealer and you want to consign your book on our website as like a buy it now, not through an auction or anything, we charge 5%. But that's it. But if you are like, and you don't have to be a dealer, isn't like I'm a dealer. You just have to be someone that's like knows comic books, is not going to screw people over, that kind of stuff. And then you handle everything. So you handle the way you want to get paid. You want to use PayPal, use PayPal. You want to get a check, get a check. It doesn't matter. We have a tracking system to track your books and track payments and all sorts of stuff. So that's what we've been working on for 3 years. I mean, you can do it now, but the auction should be up hopefully by summertime.
Okay. So keep an eye on your website. And I noticed you also have a standard thing where you can just buy different books that you have there. Most of them, or I think all of them I saw, were already graded.
Yeah, we do mostly graded stuff. It's easier to sell and less returns. And the cool thing about our site, and we use it this way, is we list everything on our site, and then it's just a click of a button, and it ports it all over to eBay.
Okay. So my next question is, did you just fall into a bin of Raphael #1s or something? Because you got like 10 of them on there.
I have,
and I'm like, dude, how many do?
I'm doing kind of like not an unboxing, but like kind of like I love turtles, so I've talked about Ninja Turtles quite a bit. But this weekend, I did a video where I'm gonna post this weekend of me just going through the different turtles that we have graded at my location. We have 2 locations, and all graded. And I still have a bunch I'm sending to CGC. But no, I always thought Turtles was too low to begin with. And the way that comics or most collectibles work, it's an emotional connection. And so at around late 30s, 40s, and 50s, that's when a person has extra income and they're not trying to just survive. And so what they do is they take that extra income and they buy things that remind them of their childhood.
Yeah, I was going to say the Turtles fans are old enough now.
Yep.
That's why I tell people, one thing you might want to look into is new Teen Titans, because there's a lot of kids in the early 2000s that love the Teen Titans cartoon, and a lot of kids like the Teen Titans Go, and they had movies about it.
I like Teen Titans Go.
Yeah. So new Teen Titans, issue 1, their first appearance in DC Comics Presents. Issue 2, first Deathstroke.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool keys in there. First Blackfire.
Also, the Teen Titans was actually very popular during the 80s as well. It was very
they were.
Yeah. So it's
the only reason they're probably not the level where you would think they would be now is because the DC movies have kind of sucked. And you have to pay a subscription to watch the Titans show. And it's very adult, so no child can.
I watched the first episode, and I was actually kind of impressed because I didn't know what to expect going into it, and I was like, "Oh, it's not that bad. Like, it's pretty adult," which I like. I don't really have time to watch too much TV, but I did watch the first episode, so I could kind of
Uh-oh.
in my opinion.
I don't know if you've ever seen anything by Who Dat Comics and Movies, but he is like the ultimate turtle fan.
Oh,
here in the
are you
comic
watching
book
right
community.
now? Is he watching? Watch this.
I would assume he's watching right now. Yeah.
All right, I got this thing. Do you know about Gobbledygook number 1 and 2?
I do. And
This
he
is-
does too.
Kevin Eastman's personal copy, signed by him. Personal copy. Not only that is this his personal copy, but so when they made those, they he basically they made the original prints and they Xeroxed 50 copies of that. I have the original master prints of this that they use. So technically I could go to a Xerox and Xerox a bunch of those, but I have the master prints of those. So
Okay, and I'm going to take a wild guess. That's in the PC
PC.
personal collection. You're not selling that?
It's actually for sale.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, the that is not for sale, but the master prints are for sale, I believe. So the way we work is if we want it in the personal collection, we just put it at an astronomical price, and then if someone wants to pay for it, they can. Because other than that, we like having them. So I think we have it at like 40 grand for the number 1 for the master print. But it's like I don't want to sell it. Like you can. If someone's like, I'll give you a good deal, and like, oh, what about 30 grand? It's like, no, I don't want to sell it. So unless you want to pay the ridiculous price that I have, it's just going to stay.
Be careful with that. I did that with ASM Annual 16 9.8 newsstand because I was like, well, I got to show it off, but I'll put this $500 for it. No one's going to want to pay that. It's only going for like $300 now. Someone bought it. It's over $1,000 right now in 9.8.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if someone wants to pay the high price, we gotta move things so we can, buy other things. But
yeah, I also noticed you had something that I hadn't seen before, and that's the Raphael number 1 second print. I've never seen anyone show that, unless Who Dat did, and I just didn't catch that. That's what it was.
Yeah, there's the second print with him and a gun, which I thought was kind of cool. He has a gun. He has like a little Uzi with Casey Jones on the cover. Yeah, I have a couple of those. Yeah, they just did a second printing of it. So yeah, there's a lot of like hidden gem turtles, like second printing variant covers, stuff like that. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, he said that is a holy grail for him.
What is?
The Gobbledygook.
I've had funny thing is I've only had one first printing of Turtles, number 1, and I've had 3 or 4 Gobbledygooks.
Funny.
I know, it's interesting. You think it was just how it's worked out. Yeah. Well, maybe we can work out a deal. But yeah, the Gobbledygooks are cool. I remember, so like I said, my dad was a dealer a long time ago. And when we first started as a dealer, we didn't have very much money, but I got offered 2 Gobbledygooks, or Gobbledygook 1 and 2, I want to say for $2,000. And we didn't have $2,000. So I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, you got to get it. He's like, it's new. Because in his mind, he's used to selling like Action 1s and stuff. He's like, he calls it, that's Turtles. He calls it new garbage. That's new garbage. And I'm like, come on, Dad, you got to do it. He's like, no, it's dumb, whatever. Who wants that stuff? I'm like, I do. He's like, yeah, but that's you. And then one sold in Heritage like a year later for like, I don't know, it was like 5 or 10 grand. I can't remember, this was years ago. And I told my dad about it. He's like, oh, see if that guy's still around. And I asked him, and he's like, oh, I sold him a long time ago. I'm like,
that's how it goes.
And I try to explain to my dad how rare they are and all this kind of stuff, but he didn't care.
Yeah.
But,
well, hey, we've all got different situations where that's come up. Like I remember in 2017 or 18, I had the opportunity to buy it was probably a 5.0 copy raw of Avengers number 8, First Kang.
mm-hmm.
And I passed it up, and then everyone started specking out. So now it's a huge book, worth probably over $1,000 now in a 5.0. And you're thinking, well, Will, that's not too bad. I didn't tell you how much I was going to have to pay for it. It was under $50.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, we've all got stories like that. But, hey,
that spike is so like weird.
Yeah, I know, man. But hey, we're almost at. We got about 4 minutes left, and we'll be at 50 minutes. So I think that's pretty good for a discussion. So you're growing pretty fast, but you're still relatively new as far as YouTube goes. I had never heard of you until a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So tell, as we close it down here, tell people who you are, what you do, mention your channel again, and folks, in the description you'll find the link to his channel as well. So I'm gonna give you the floor. Anything you want to say? You got about 6 to 8 people watching right now.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I'm David from Comic Book Investments on YouTube. I've been a dealer for 12 years. Like, this is my job that I do to pay for a living. And yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to do a YouTube channel and kind of just never got the courage and the time to do it. So I started doing it, and I just like showcasing, like every week I showcase what I get in as a dealer. Not all the stuff, but just different things. And like, this is one of the things I got in this week, which I've never had before. First printing of the Overstreet Price Guide, first one. So that's kind of cool. So things like that. And yeah, I just talk about different like investments, whether it's comics, maybe it's collectibles, maybe it's stocks, things like that. Just showing that comics can be fun, but also an investment. And yeah, so check out my channel. Yeah. Short,
sweet, simple, and humble. I like it. All right, folks. Well, that's going to be it for me today. I have scheduled another interview discussion with someone else tomorrow, so be sure to check that out. And I've had a few sprinklings of unboxings that I've already recorded, been releasing on the channel. So check them out. They're actually doing okay for me, at least. So I'm happy about that. And hopefully I'll be doing more stuff sooner rather than later. And David, do not mash Leave Studio.
What?
Do not mash the Leave Studio button, and we will going to end this broadcast, and we'll see you guys later.